Do you have a sink full of dishes and don't know how to clean them? Does your sink look like it needs a serious cleaning as well? Well, you're in luck. This video is going to teach you how to wash dishes and how to clean your sink before beginning washing your dishes. It's also going to teach you how to clean your sink once you have completed washing your dishes. The first step is going to be to remove any jewelry and your watch and set it aside so that bacteria does not get into it. After that, you're going to empty the sink that you want to put your soapy water into. You're also going to want to make sure that your sponge is clean. To begin with, you're going to want to smell it to make sure it doesn't smell sour, and then you're going to want to rinse it thoroughly with hot water, making sure that you get as much of the old soap and things like that out of it as you can. Then you are going to thoroughly scrub your sink with soapy water. You can just use dish soap for this. You're going to scrub out all parts of it, including the sides and the bottom. You want this to feel smooth after you've scrubbed it to ensure that any of your food is out of the sink and that you've gotten every single bit of things that are going to contaminate your dishes out of there. If you've been putting dishes in there throughout the last couple of days, all of that food will have been growing bacteria throughout that amount of time. So you want to start out with as clean a sink as possible. Then you're going to rinse your sink thoroughly with as hot a water as you can get your sink to have, running all of that soapy water down into the drain. These little screen strainers are great for making sure that extra food doesn't go down the drain that shouldn't. This is also really good if you don't have a garbage disposal. After your sink is clean, you're going to fill your sink with soapy water. You don't need a ton of soap. Just about a tablespoon should be plenty to clean a whole sink full of dishes. You can begin by adding your dishes to the water. Begin with the least dirty because any grease that gets in the water is going to contaminate any dishes that are in there. Beginning with the least dirty is going to mean that any grease from things like pots and pans are not going to contaminate those dishes. Remove the gaskets from any of your lids from things like stainless steel tumblers or Stanley cups. A lot of bacteria can build up underneath those, and studies have shown that those bacteria can make you sick over time. It's important to take these gaskets off at least once a week to clean underneath them, more often if you're drinking things like smoothies from these cups. Once you have your first sink emptied, you're going to empty your second sink, clearing out any of your other dishes. If those dishes don't fit into the sink that has the soapy water in it, move them onto the countertop or into other areas so that you can clean the sink out completely. This will be the sink we'll be rinsing in. After that, you're going to clean this other sink thoroughly. You're going to be filling the sink with water to rinse the dishes in, so this sink needs to be completely and thoroughly cleaned. That's why you're going to sanitize this sink as well. You also want to sanitize the plug itself, since that is going to be touching clean water. The dishes that are coming out of this water are going to be considered clean, so it's very, very important that you clean this sink even more carefully than you cleaned your first sink. As you can see, I'm sanitizing the sink itself and the plug itself. After that, you're going to fill the second sink with warm water. You want this water to be clean, so make sure you don't have any soap residue or sanitizer left in the sink. This water should be as warm as you can stand to put your hands into. It does need to be able to be something your hands can stand because you're going to be dipping the dishes into the sink in order to rinse them. Now we're ready to start actually scrubbing dishes. You're going to scrub each of your dishes with a dishcloth, sponge, or scrubber, making sure to get any of the food bits off of that particular item. Then you're going to dip them into the water in order to rinse them off, making sure that you get any of the soap off of the item. You want to ensure there's no food bits on the dish. The dish should be smooth once you're finished scrubbing it. Check the dish after you've rinsed it to make sure that there's no food left on there. Pay special attention to edges and corners as food tends to gather in those areas. You may also need a long-handled sponge or scrubber to reach into deeper dishes. Make sure that all the soap is off of things before you stop rinsing. You may also need to dip things back into soapy water to get the food off before putting it into the clean rinse water, because you don't want food to go into the rinse water because then you'll need to change it out. This method of rinsing off dishes may seem new to you, but it's used almost exclusively in food service due to the amount of water that it saves. So if your water bill is a concern, this is a great way to save it. If you're washing reusable straws, use the pipe cleaners that come with them to clean all of the food residue out of them. Make sure that you're cleaning them from both ends, and they should clean up very easily. Also, be sure to clean your Stanley straw on a regular basis. We talked earlier about making sure that you clean your gaskets on your tumblers at least once a week. The easiest way to clean them is with a dishcloth. Grab the gasket with the dishcloth, making sure that it's surrounded on both sides. Then you're going to rotate the gasket through the dishcloth, making sure that it goes completely around. And that way you're going to get into all of the grooves of the dishcloth. Sometimes you'll be very, very surprised at how dirty the dishcloth is after you've pulled that through. And that means that all of those things could have been getting into whatever beverages that you're drinking within the course of a week. This is why it's really, really important to make sure you're cleaning those gaskets on a regular basis. You can also choose to rinse your dishes under running water instead of using the full sink of water method. It does tend to use more water, but it's a method that most home cooks use. It's honestly what I use on most occasions. It allows me to use that other sink for things like washing my hands or for putting other dishes in. It also leaves that sink open to rinse things off to put them in the dishwasher. So that method works well for most people. For dishes like cupcake pans that have compartments, you need to wash carefully. Scrub the inside of the cups very carefully and between the cups. Then you're going to turn it over and scrub the back very carefully as well. You may find that you need to rinse this item several times within the process just to make sure you're getting everything off of it. But it's worth it because any food residue that stays behind might end up burning the next time that you bake things. Anything you leave behind on a baking dish may flavor whatever you cook next. That becomes really bad if that particular item burns. So it's very important to clean these things very carefully for your next round. Before putting something in the dishwater that has a lot of food waste in it, you may want to rinse it, especially if it's something that's had raw food in it like a marinade. That's what was in this particular bowl. So I'm rinsing it very well before I put it in the dishwater so that I don't contaminate the dishwater. If you're washing something non-stick or that has a delicate finish that you know can be damaged, don't ever use steel wool or metal scrubbers on it. Those can make the finish chip. You also don't want to put those items in the dishwasher. Always hand wash them. Be sure to clean both sides of sheet pans, especially since we have a tendency to stack these. Any oils that build up on these can go rancid over time, which means oil's going bad. That makes them smell bad and can end up smelling up whatever food that you're cooking on them later. A lot of times these don't fit in the sink, so you may need to wash them over top of the sink. Knives are something that can cause great injury, so don't ever drop them down into the dishwater because you won't be able to see them. Always wash them up out of the water and save them for a later time to wash them so that you don't injure yourself, and be very, very careful while you're washing them. Keep your fingers away from the blade and don't forget to wash the handle. If you've used them with any sort of raw meat, you may also want to sanitize them, but don't ever put these in the dishwasher either. When you have finished washing and rinsing your dishes, always air dry them. Set them to the side and don't put them away until they have completely dried. Stacking them can cause moisture to build up in between the dishes, which can grow mold and bacteria over time. But towels grow bacteria as well, especially if you use them over days. So dish towels are for decoration only. Once you have finished, you're going to drain your sink and repeat your cleaning process. Drain all of your water out, and you're going to thoroughly clean your sink, scrubbing everything out. Make sure to remove any food from the drains so that you don't attract things like fruit flies or other pests. Also run plenty of water down so that the food that remains in the drain doesn't attract those pests as well. Dump any food remaining in your drain plug out into the trash can and clean the drain plug thoroughly. That's going to draw pests as well if you leave the food remaining in there. Sanitize the entire area around the sink. We're going to spray all of the areas around the sink and wipe them off. This includes behind your sink, the backsplash behind the sink, your faucet and the handles. Lift up any items that you have setting around the sink and sanitize underneath them. Don't forget to clean underneath things like soap dispensers or any decorative items that you have. Check any of these items and make sure that they don't need to be cleaned or that things have not splashed onto them. Rinse your sponges thoroughly, and you may need to throw them out if they've been used with raw meat or if they're too dirty. You'll know they're too dirty if they have a sour smell or if they're visibly soiled. Place your sponges somewhere that they can drain and not sit in water. If they're sitting in water, they are able to grow bacteria because any area that has moisture can grow bacteria. Spray your entire sink with sanitizer and let it sit until the next use. Don't wipe it off to give the sanitizer the maximum opportunity to kill bacteria before the next time you use your sink. Sometimes you may just have 1 to 2 items to wash and you don't want to run an entire sink of water. In those cases, there are some really easy ways to wash just 1 to 2 dishes. What I found works really well is to use one of these soap dispensers and to just use a little sponge. I get the sponge wet, and then I hold it underneath the soap dispenser and it dispenses a little bit of soap onto it. Then you just take your sponge, thoroughly scrub your dish just like you would in a normal dishwashing procedure, making sure that you get any of your food bits off, and then you rinse it underneath running water. You still want to make sure that all your food residue is removed, and use water as hot as your hands can stand. After you've thoroughly rinsed, you want to set it up to air dry. I love this dish strainer because it sits over top of the sink and doesn't take up a whole lot of counter space. Thank you so much for watching, and happy dishwashing. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.